concerns these days, the economy. So there will be an expanded debate on that.
From Calgary, if you were elected Prime Minister, what steps would you take to stabilize Canada's export-driven economy in the midst of a global economic slowdown and a pending recession with our most lucrative partner, the United States?
Quickly. First thing I would do is put a freeze on the takeover of our corporations. We've lost Inco, Falconbridge, Hudson Bay. We need to protect our corporations because the foreign direct investment there is actually driving up the Canadian dollar. We need to take steps to reduce the dollar's value against the United States so that we can drive up our export-driven industries, protecting the manufacturing sector, forestry, and we need to look long-term to invest in sustainable jobs, to invest in Canada so that it's not just the short-term we look after, but our kids' economy and our future.
Thank you.
I think that the government has a role to play right now. We have an action plan that I released yesterday. For the first 30 days of a Liberal government, we'll do something like, for example, we'll speed up the investment to build infrastructure and to help the manufacturing sector to create jobs and employment and economic activity in Canada. We'll ask to the regulatory agencies of our country, like the Bank of Canada, their recommendation to be sure that we'll be able to protect your savings, your mortgages, and your pensions. We have a plan. We'll act right now.
Obviously, economic uncertainty is the big question of this election, and Canadians are worried about the volatility in markets. What leaders have to do is have a plan and not panic. Last night, Stefan, you panicked. You came on the set and announced a whole new economic plan in the middle of a national debate. I know why you did that, because you look at your platform. Your platform says we will spend billions of dollars we don't have and go into deficit. We will raise taxes that will kill jobs. You will create a carbon tax that will drive up prices. I believe we have to keep this economy, we have to keep our budget in surplus. We have to make investments that will create jobs, and we have to keep taxes down. And I think that's the central choice of this economy and the central choice of this election.
The economic turmoil in the U.S. and with the loss of thousands of manufacturing and forestry jobs here in Canada, we need some action. And a further big tax cut to the big corporations that Mr. Harper is proposing, or a new tax that Mr. Dion is proposing, is the wrong way to go. What we would do is bring in effective regulations on our financial sector right away to make sure that your savings are protected and that we don't end up with a meltdown or a big payout to protect the banks. And secondly, we would invest in the fundamentals of the real economy. And we've laid out a comprehensive plan to do that in this election. You know, if we were to stand up for the real economy and working families like yours, then the banks and the economy as a whole will be just fine.
Serious situation. The problem is, though, that, and just heard Stephen Harper, I don't think he takes that seriously. Just like George Bush a few months ago. It's like the don't worry, be happy. And they have the same attitude because they share the same ideology, the economic laissez-faire. It has disastrous consequences, not only in the United States, but also for the manufacturing and forestry sectors, especially in Quebec, in Ontario. They have the same philosophy, the invisible hand. He believes in the invisible hand, and I think the problem is the invisible hand is in hand with the rich oil companies. I think the state has a role to play to help the companies and to help the workers, the first victims.
Let's be clear about what the situation is. We have not been following the same policies as the United States. The economic and financial mess in the United States is disastrous. The policies have been irresponsible. We've made very different choices in Canada. We have a budget that's in surplus, not a budget that's in deficit. We're paying off debt in Canada, not adding to our debt. We are creating jobs in this country. Even this slow year, we're still creating jobs. We're not losing jobs. Our mortgage and housing sector, we took actions early to ensure we had good regulation of our financial institutions, to ensure we didn't have the subprime crisis here. We have our banks are in a solid position. We're not bailing out big companies in Canada. We're investing in infrastructure, technology, communities, and workers. And that's what we should be doing.
I think it's important to note that the international economic community looking at Canada, the OECD report, actually recommends that the health of Canada's economy would be improved if we reduce the taxes on income and payroll and put them on carbon instead. That's an international recommendation from other countries that have done the same. It's not economically disastrous. It's a smart economic thing.
Is not fine, and if you talk to Canadians today, that's what they'll tell you. Now, either you don't care or you're incompetent. Which is it?
Go ahead. Let me answer this. We identified, everybody knew about this financial crisis in August 2007. That's why we began acting the fall of last year to bring forward a tax reduction package that would help consumers, help business, help families. Now, Jack, you say it's $50 billion tax cut for business. That's true. I don't dispute that. But it was a $200 billion tax cut package. 3/4 of that was for families, was for small business, was for individuals.
But why do banks and oil companies need that kind of help right now when families are suffering?
No, but let me talk about that's important, because you said one of the things you pointed out last night that is a valid point is that what Canadians are worried about right now is not the job situation, not losing their home like in the U.S. What they're worried about is they see the stock market problems. We see big drops in the stock market in the energy sector, in the commodity sector, some in the financial sector.
400,000 people have lost their jobs.
And what the opposition proposes...
How can you say nobody's worried about job loss?
Gentlemen, I have to manage the time here.
For the last 3 years, if we do believe Jim Flaherty, your own finance minister, in the statement, economic statement he made last October, page 28, it's very clear. So I think we have to develop policies to help the manufacturing sector. They don't make profits, so they don't pay any income tax. So we have to put reimbursable tax credit for research and development for the companies, and we have to have a better employment insurance for the workers. Only 40% of them receive benefits when they're losing their jobs, and they're the first victims of that crisis.
2.5 years. We have now what? The lowest economic growth of the G8 countries. Only in July, we lost 95,000 jobs in the private sector. For 9 months in a row, our productivity rate is going down. It never happened since 1991. You come last fall with a rosy mini budget that put us very close to a deficit. And your Minister of Finance never had a better idea than to tell the world to not invest in Ontario, and you kept him. How you can have done that? This is the situation in which we are. And doing nothing is not an option.
Response from Mr. Harper, then Ms. May. Can I be clear what we've done? As I said, we introduced a tax package early. We didn't keep a large amount of money in Ottawa. We made sure it went back into the economy, so we created jobs. We've created close to 100,000 net new jobs this year. I know there have been job losses, but there have been more jobs created than lost, and that's important that we hold on to that. Now, the opposition, Jack just said it, wants to put big taxes on companies that are making money, but look at the markets. Look at the markets. You talk about the oil and gas sector, financial sector. Some of these stocks are weak. This would be the wrong time. Putting taxes on these companies will only penalize jobs and will only hurt pensioners and others who have investments in these funds. It doesn't. Raising taxes right now, which is what all the opposition parties propose, simply does not.
Again, the OECD report says Canada is at risk of Dutch disease, and if we're going to avoid that, we need to have the dollar at a level that's competitive. I agree with you. We don't want to raise taxes throughout society. We want to cut income taxes, because your tax package cut the wrong taxes.
Okay, let's go to
Every economist
just a minute, please.
It cut primarily GST.
Okay, very clear. Then we'll go ahead. Of course, there have been jobs lost, but there have been more jobs created. We don't have a mortgage meltdown in Canada. We don't have a banking crisis in Canada. We should recognize the strength of our economy and activate those things.
Why don't you take action now on these issues?
Stand by, please.
Don't worry. I will give you an example of your laissez-faire, I don't care approach. Each time we have asked you to do something about the manufacturing sector in the House, you were answering, well, the economy will create jobs elsewhere. To have a strong economy, you need to have a strong manufacturing sector. You need to build that on a strong manufacturing sector, and the Liberal plan is about
to raise taxes. I said that you have to stop making fiscal gifts to the rich oil company. This is another story. This year it's $2,350 million. And I think one of the biggest error you're making is not linking environment to economy. We have to apply Kyoto. Modern economies can't be developed apart from the environment. It goes together. We call that sustainable development. And your party and yourself are just acting against Kyoto, against modern economy, with all the disastrous consequences we'll be facing not only for the planet, but for the economy of Quebec and Canada.
Chance for Mr. Harper to respond. Let's be clear about what we are doing about some of these problems. We've brought in tax incentives for machinery and equipment investment in manufacturing. That is aiding the sector to make a transformation. In fact, the manufacturers and exporters are calling for the extension of that. We have targeted investments in forestry, in automobiles, in the aerospace sector. We have the Community Development Fund for communities in trouble. January 1st this year, we're creating the tax-free savings accounts so Canadian families can save, and Canadian families can save, and we'll create a pool of national savings to encourage investment. These are all things that we are doing.
I did promise.